decision-making, time management, critical thinking, empathy. These are all life skills that we require to face the demands that life puts in front of us. But in this, we have a skill that we often forget or undermine. That skill is storytelling. When I say storytelling, we often remember our favorite fairy tales and fables. We think of imagination and make-believe. But look around you, in front of you, behind you, to your left and right. Around you are stories aching to be told. We all have a story. But unfortunately, many of us live our lives not knowing our stories, teaching or learning life lessons from our stories, and equally not paying attention to the thousands of stories happening around us. Now, I think the occasion calls for me to tell a personal anecdote, so let's open my storybook. We are back in 2006, and I'm 5 years old. We'll be attending my annual kindergarten spelling bee. I was 5 years old at the time, and we were living in America. So my grandparents had flown in from Pakistan, and my parents had especially taken the day off to see their shining star perform. I let the competition commence. So my teacher walks up to the first student, and she says, "Please spell the word the." In my head, I think, wow, this is going to be a very easy competition. I am bound to win. Expectedly, he spells the word correctly. Then she moves on to the next student. She spells her word correctly, and then I'm next in line. So she comes up to me, and she says, "Aamna, please spell the word all." I take the mic from her hand ever so confidently, and without second thought, I announce into the mic, all. O-L. All. It was a moment of silence. But then the teacher had to announce the first elimination from the annual kindergarten spelling bee. And that was fine. It was okay. The participation prize was a bouncy ball. But when I had to go sit down in the empty row of seats made for the children who got eliminated, I kind of just started glancing at all the parents' faces. And what I noticed was that my parents' facial expressions were not the same as the other parents who had children performing very, very well in the spelling bee. Now, they weren't disappointed in me. I was 5 years old. It was a kindergarten spelling bee, no big deal. But I couldn't see proudness on their face, joy. And since that day, all I've worked for is not to see that face again. By 4th grade, I was doing spelling tests from spelling lists created for the top 5% of students in the education board. Till 8th grade, I did not allow my grade to drop lower than a 95%. And by 10th grade, I had taken part in multiple spelling bees, in which I can tell you guys 2 things. 1, I was never the first person to get eliminated. And 2, I always made sure to revise the spelling of the word all before going. Now let's close my storybook. I just portrayed to you my pettiest failure and how that shaped some of my greatest achievements. I just convinced you all that 5-year-old Aamna Azam was so motivated by her parents' facial expressions that it shaped who she is today, standing in front of you. And that, my dear audience, is the power of storytelling. Now, since we have a lot of students over here, let's kind of just put you guys on the spot. We're all going and aspiring to go to university in a couple of years. We'll all be applying. But your application is going to be thrown into a pool of hundreds and thousands of other applications from students who have the same or even better grades than you. But how do you convince the admission officer that that spot at the university is yours? through your words, through your story, which will be portrayed on your portfolio, your essays, and even your interview. The greatest of leaders in this world have the following that they have because they are amazing storytellers. Let's talk about Mark Zuckerberg, his famous Harvard dropout story. And I can promise you guys, Mr. Zuckerberg does not tell this story because he is proud to not have a college degree. But he tells this story because he knows that it has the abilities to inspire so many people in so many different ways. But let's bring it back on us. The race of life is the same for all of us. And our actions will only take us to a certain position where we will be in par with so many different people who've achieved the same things in their lives. But how do we convince the people around us that we are capable of more? As I say, our actions can only speak so much for us, but we have the ability to speak for our actions, to move forward in life. But the question is, do we know how to? Do we know how to? Or the real question is, do we even know our story? And this, my audience, brings me to my first point of how to tell a story. It's your who am I story. Do you know who you are? Because we tend to dig our failures, brush off our achievements, undermine our passions, not evaluate our experiences. We live in the present but forget that it's the past that has shaped us. But once we have the thoughts in our head, once we start evaluating what we've done in life and we have the story flowing, we have to come to the next second step. And this is going to be very cliche, but it is equally as important. It is what our second and third grade teachers taught us. The 5 essential aspects of a story: the plot, the characters, the setting, the climax, and the resolution. I'm not saying that we have to write a novel about every single experience that we have. But what we need to do is imply these things in our story. When I told you guys my kindergarten spelling bee story, I highlighted all these aspects, these elements, so that you all can have a moving image in your head, so you all can relate to what I have to say. And then this brings me to the third and the most important aspect and rule to storytelling, and that is capturing emotion. The way we phrase our words has the ability to impact so many. Our stories are credible without facts. Our stories can influence without statistics. And our stories can inspire without evidence. Now I'd like to leave on this final note. I hope we have these screws and gears turning in our head about our life and our experiences and our stories. I just want to say that regardless of your age, regardless of your gender, regardless of where you're from, regardless of what you've been exposed to in life, we all have stories worth becoming bestsellers. Thank you.